So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Learning Lab Summer Webinar Series. I'm Lark Park, Director of the Learning Lab, and with me is Beth Hotchkiss, Program Analyst for the Learning Lab. So we have two really wonderful guests here for our webinar today. They are Michelle Pacansky-Brock and Kim Vincent-Layton. Before I introduce them, I wanted just to say thanks to everyone who's joining us for this webinar. We actually had a lot of people sign up, and it's really great that there's so much interest in humanizing online teaching as everyone heads into fall instruction. It's a very timely and potentially impactful topic. I also want to note that this is the last of our summer series, but we're thinking about a fall conversation series. So we'll probably send out a poll to see what people are interested in terms of future webinars and topics. If you haven't already signed up on our listserv, on Learning Labs listserv, I'd encourage you to do so, so you can catch what it is that we're promoting in terms of webinars and conversations. So let me introduce our dynamic duo today. Michelle Pacansky-Brock is a faculty mentor of digital innovation of California Virtual College Online Education Initiative, hosted out of Foothill College. She's the product of the CSU and UC systems, and she received her education doctorate from Capella University in Educational Leadership and Management. Kim Vincent-Layton is an educational developer at Humboldt State University. She has a BA and an MBA from Humboldt State and is poised to receive her education doctorate in instructional systems and technology from Indiana Bloomington very soon. Now, I've given you their academic credentials, but I always think it's best to have something memorable about our guests. So I'm going to include a word, not just about their academic cred, but talk for a moment about their street cred, which is really important in life, as we know. So for Michelle, her street cred is in sports, and more specifically, 49ers cred. So Michelle fondly recalls going to games with her dad at Candlestick Park back in the day. These were some of her most cherished memories, and she named her dog, and let me see if I can pull up her dog on screen. She named her dog after 49ers player Dwight Clark, and she bought her dog the appropriate jersey pictured here. Michelle, we were always wondering who has these wiener dogs, who buys them the sweaters, and then who buys them the sports sweaters. And it turns out that it's you. And so I just want to thank you for putting that mystery to bed. Kim has mountain climbing and altitudinal street cred. Let me see if I can pull up her picture. There we go. There we go. So this is Kim, actually not that long ago, pictured with her daughter after climbing glorious Mount Shasta. There is no smoke up there, as I can see. Though she doesn't have a before picture, she assures us that it was a toasty temperature before they went up, and they went up in shorts, and they were prepared enough to pack their full climbing winter gear by the time they got to the summit. So yesterday it was Mount Shasta, today it's humanizing online teaching, tomorrow maybe it'll be Everest. But in any case, thank you, Kim, for making this stop on your way to these really wonderful faraway places. So without further ado, I give you the humanizing team.
Thank you so much, Lark. Hi, folks. I'm Michelle Pacansky-Brock. Kim, do you want to say hi real quick?
Hi, everyone. I'm Kim. Great to see everybody's faces and hear voices here today.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you here. And we do want to warmly invite you, extend the opportunity to turn your webcam on if that's something that suits you, if that serves you at this moment. If not, it's fine to leave it off. We just want to extend that invitation. It's always nice to see smiling faces as we engage with our conversations. And we have a poll that we're going to get started with. So I think I should be able to launch that. If you could just take a moment to answer these few questions that you should be seeing in a poll on your screen right now, that would be great.
And note there's 3 questions, so you might have to scroll past number 2 to get to that final one.
Thanks, Kim. Good point. So I see about 90% of you have completed the poll. So we'll give you another 5 seconds. We're at 94% now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and end that poll and we'll take a look at the results here. You should now see those on your screen. Let's take a look. Which system are you a part of? So 63% of our participants are representing the California Community College system, and 25% represent the California State University system, 11% are from the UC system, and then we have 4% of you who said other. So welcome to all of you. What is your primary role on campus? 74% of you said faculty, 9% staff, 9% administrator, and 9% other. And which best describes you? I teach in a STEM discipline, 37%. I teach in a discipline outside of STEM, 35%. So interesting kind of a split there. So welcome everybody. And then we had 12% of you who said that you're in a faculty developer or support role. Welcome. And 16% other. So great. That's nice to know who's here. And we strongly believe in the value of sharing knowledge in the room. So we want to invite you, if you have anything to contribute, any ideas from your own teaching practices or things that you've heard about, we want to certainly encourage you to share your thoughts and your reflections with your peers in the chat during the session today. And Kim and I will be holding some time at the end for some questions. So that's what we're going to do moving forward. Before we get to the slides, I'd like to ask each of you to just take a moment to take a deep breath and think about these past tumultuous 6 months and identify one person in your life who has played a role in supporting you, who has done something to support you through our times of quarantine or global pandemic the last several months. And as you think of that one person, I'd like to invite you to share that person's name in the chat. You can share their first name, their full name, their initials, whatever you'd prefer to do. But we'd just like to take a moment to acknowledge those names. Thank you for sharing names in the chat there. And I think one of the most important things to point out right now is that those are not just names, those are humans. Those are gracious humans. And as we start this presentation today, thinking about relationships and the importance and the value of human connection, we want you to keep those feelings at heart as we move forward through this presentation, because this really is a session about human connection. Okay, so let me go ahead and get started with my slides here. Welcome to Don't Be a Robot, Lessons on How and Why to Humanize Online Teaching. Kim and I are very happy to be here to share with you today. And we are 2 people from a much larger grant team funded by the California Education Learning Lab. Our full team is on the screen here, and you'll see that we have 2 representatives from the Foothill-DeAnza Community College District, myself and Sarah Williams, who's a math faculty. And I fall into more of the faculty development / support role for online teaching. And then over at Modesto Junior College, we have Mike Smedshammer, who's my faculty development co-PI peer, and Brent Wedge, who's a STEM faculty. He teaches computer science. And then we have a similar duo from Humboldt State University, Kim Vincent-Layton, who's here with us today, serving as a faculty development co-PI, and Jeffrey White, who is he teaches biology at Humboldt State University. All three of our STEM faculty teach online, and they're playing a very big, important role in our project that we'll talk a little bit more about. And then Dee Zhu is leading the research piece of our project from UC Irvine. I want to acknowledge that this notion of humanizing online teaching is a grassroots movement that began more than 10 years ago in the California community college system. And it has, as most grassroots efforts do, it has spread. We've seen adoption of these ideas, experimentation with these ideas across the CSU and beyond that in other states as well. It's really important that we point out that this is grassroots and that this is a teaching practice that we are now looking to put some research around and prove that it is a valid way to improve equity in online courses. So I have the names of some people who have played a significant role over that time, and there are certainly many, many more of them. And if you have any questions, if you want to dig deeper into humanizing or see some of the examples that it will be referencing later in the session, there is an article that we recently had published in Current Issues in Education that is linked on the screen here. And Beth, if you haven't done so already, I'd like to encourage you to please share the link to these slides in the chat. So you folks can reference them as you wish. These slides were developed as an ongoing resource for you. So there'll be lots of things that I don't click that you're encouraged to go back and revisit later. Now, Kim and I would like to get started with a little bit of an acknowledgement about our positionality, because we are talking about equity. And so we have put together an equity statement, a statement about equity. To us, being an equity-minded educator requires us to make a commitment to improving our knowledge about the experiences of humans who are Black, Latinx, Indigenous, other people of color, LGBTQIA, and physically or cognitively different. Continuously strive to see the privileges that we have been and continue to be afforded by the color of our skin, our cisgender, our heterosexuality, our abled bodies, to intentionally connect with, make space for, and learn from our diverse colleagues, to continue to make changes in our teaching practices, to not think of teaching as something that you just do the same way every time you teach a course, and to share equity-minded online teaching practices that work. It also requires us to remove our emotional armor and engage in conversations about race and ethnicity, even though that makes us uncomfortable to do so. And recognize that we are going to make mistakes. This is probably the hardest one. And know that that is a good thing, because mistakes are evidence of one's effort to grow. If we never make mistakes, we never try new things. So we wanted to start the conversation anchored around that statement. And the problem that we are investigating here with humanizing online teaching is reflected on this slide here. Higher education is a vehicle for social mobility in the United States. And diversity is key to innovation in all sense of the word, whether it be in our institutions or at the national level, working in the STEM workforce, any workforce for that matter. Different perspectives, backgrounds, experiences, and cultures yield more ideas. Online courses increase access to higher education for students who have been left out. And that is, I would say, most true in the California community college system in California public higher education, where more than 25% of our state enrollments, even prior to COVID-19, came from fully online courses. So that access, the access provided by online, is really key. But we also know that Black, Hispanic, and Indigenous students are less likely to succeed in college courses across the board. And that problem is exacerbated in STEM disciplines, in which women are also less likely to succeed, and also in online courses. So we are applying humanizing to that intersection there. Higher education, but specifically within STEM and online courses. this quote here to us really represents what it means to be an equity-minded educator. When a flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment in which it grows, not the flower. Too frequently, when it comes to online courses, well, I should say all courses, but specifically in online courses, it seems to be that we cast the blame on our students. This deficit-based way of thinking about our students is problematic, and we are making an effort to conscientiously shift away from that and instead look at our own processes. So it is our position that online is not the problem when we look at the exacerbation of equity gaps when students learn online. Lack of human connection is a barrier that exacerbates equity gaps in online courses. It's not the only barrier, but it's the one that we are focusing on with humanized online teaching and learning. And then also it's important to acknowledge that asynchronous online teaching requires unique digital fluencies and communication strategies that faculty do not innately possess. So while we could simply turn and say, hey, we need to ensure that positive instructor to student relationships are established online, that's great. But we really need to be sure that we are offering faculty a method, a place, a community to learn how to do that. And also that place needs to be a brave place to encourage faculty to experiment, to make mistakes. Let me try this again. There we go. Okay. So our question here is, how does humanized online teaching affect the success of students, particularly our Black, Indigenous, and Hispanic students in online undergraduate STEM courses, as well as all courses? So just to be clear, the grant project that we're working on is looking at STEM courses, but these are practices that are applicable across the board to all disciplines. And I think that's evident because of how many of you here today are not STEM teachers. I'm going to play a brief video here of a student who is describing his experiences in an online course. This is very brief, it's only 30 seconds, but I just want you to listen to what he says, but also how he feels as he's saying it.
I can see that a professor isn't trying to interact with the course, and it's just little things like the automatic announcements that only show up at 12 a.m. on a Sunday. Like, you know, it's all automated. They're just not, or you leave a question and ask the professor, and 3 weeks later you get a response. Like, that's when I start to judge, like, I just wish you wouldn't be here. Like, I wish you would focus your energy somewhere else because I'm not learning anything. But yeah, so that's the only judgment, is when you're not doing anything. We don't care when you make mistakes, though.
So that feeling, the experience of an online course is really what we're trying to draw out here. Oftentimes when faculty teach online, there's a clear acknowledgement that, oh my gosh, this is so much work, and it is. But sometimes it's easy to forget that your presence, your human presence, doesn't come with you in an online course unless you intentionally create it. And I also want to underscore that our point is not to say that scheduling announcements in Canvas or another learning management system is a bad practice. It's certainly very helpful, and it's a great way to stay organized and to use your time effectively, but it isn't an effective way to bring your human presence into a student's learning experience. So humanized online teaching, what is it? Instructor to student relationships lie at the heart of humanized online courses, and they serve as the connective tissue between students' engagement and rigor. I really want to underscore the "and" rigor part, because we frequently hear from peers that this is just a way to dumb down our courses, or this is a way to not have students be held accountable for working hard. And that's absolutely not the truth. In fact, it's the opposite of that. And that's what I hope to unveil for you a bit more. Humanizing is based in many theoretical research-based frameworks that I'm not going to get into here except for one. We will unpack warm demander pedagogy a bit, which is part of culturally responsive teaching. It's also grounded in validation theory, which is from the work of Laura Rendon, social presence, which has a very long history of research in distance education, and Universal Design for Learning, or UDL. And why does humanizing work? Positive instructor-to-student relationships decenter negative mindsets that students hold about their intellectual abilities. Mindsets represent the non-cognitive aspects of learning that we'll talk a little bit more about here. Humanizing empowers students to achieve their full intellectual capacity, which is often blocked by these negative mindsets, and increases student-to-student engagement and the development of community online. And the reason why this works is really, it comes back to the anatomy of learning. In higher education and in Western society in general, we really privilege cognition, that domain of thinking and understanding. It's rooted in our cultural values. We go back in our Western history to the time of the Enlightenment and think about Descartes, I think, therefore I am. But there's another dimension to learning. We as humans are always feeling and sensing. We're always bringing our past experiences into every moment of our lives, including courses, including formal learning, including teaching, right? And it's at the intersection of knowing and thinking and feeling that learning occurs. When we teach online, it is true that it is true that our students are just names on a screen. When we teach online, we log into a course, we see names, unless we do something intentional to turn those names into people. One of the problems about this is that the less we know about people, the more we make up. And that's a quote from Dr. Donna Ford. And this gets to unpack how we lean on our implicit biases and stereotypes about people based upon names on a screen. Our students are not just names on a screen, just like the names that you shared in the chat earlier. They are diverse people with rich, beautiful experiences that are being brought into your classroom. And so what we want to do is figure out how, identify strategies to unveil that, but also get to know more about your learners. Also get to know and acknowledge these negative mindsets that students often bring into higher education, particularly our students who have been minoritized through their educational experiences. Our students are not underprepared, they are prepared differently. And when it comes to these two domains, humanizing really works in the area of cognition with regards to dependent and independent learning, and then in the area of the thinking and feeling with regards to scaffolding and supporting the negative mindsets that come along with imposter syndrome or imposterism, stereotype threat, and trauma. So digging into the dependent and the independent learner piece about cognition just a little bit, it's very important to know and to acknowledge that education is not neutral. This is a quote from Zaretta Hammond's Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain, which is an excellent book that I highly recommend. Classroom studies document the fact that underserved English learners, poor students, and students of color routinely receive less instruction in higher order skills development than other students. This denies students the opportunity to engage in what neuroscientists call productive struggle that actually grows our brain power. As a result, a disproportionate number of culturally and linguistically diverse students are dependent learners. This is particularly important for us here in California public higher education, where the diversity of the students that we serve has increased dramatically in recent years. So, dependent and independent learners. I want to make it clear that every human begins as a dependent learner, and it's through that cognitive struggle, that intellectual struggle, that one develops into an independent learner. Dependent learners are unsure about how to tackle a new task. They need scaffolding to complete tasks and will sit passively and wait, if stuck, until the teacher intervenes. Now, when you apply those characteristics to an online course, you can see how being knowledgeable about this might help us to interpret signs like a student not logging in regularly as perhaps being a symptom of some other problem than just not being motivated or not wanting to try harder. Independent learners possess cognitive strategies for getting unstuck, attempt new tasks without scaffolds, and have learned how to retrieve information from long-term memory. So culturally responsive teaching, warm demander pedagogy is a strategy that helps to move our students who are dependent learners from that phase into becoming a dependent learner. And it starts with a positive instructor to student relationship that is intentionally cultivated at the start of a course. Those relationships are leveraged to increase academic performance. With warm demander pedagogy, producing a high level of academic work becomes a reciprocal obligation between students and teachers. Students push themselves beyond their perceived ability so they do not let their teacher down. And that's the part, that's why the relationship matters so much. And it's important to stress that it's not just about creating a connection, it's about leveraging that connection, letting students know that we believe in them and challenging them to push themselves. And with warm demander pedagogy, rigor is derived through empathy. So that's the cognitive piece. We're going to take a look now at the affective piece and really specifically focus just a little bit on stereotype threat, which I'm sure many of you have heard of. And if you haven't, it's one of the concepts that we introduce faculty to in the professional development program known as the Humanizing Online STEM Academy, which we're going to be showing you in just a little bit. So stereotype threat is rooted in the research of Steele and Aronson, and it is when a person feels at risk of confirming a negative stereotype about one's identity. It's triggered by situations. It's often triggered in higher education by exams, but it can be triggered by other things as well. Negative stereotypes about intelligence are more likely to trigger stereotype threat in college students who are Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and women in STEM courses. The consequences are disengagement, underachievement on exams and other academic tasks. We actually see students look at their mistakes and view them as evidence that they simply don't belong here. And that's one of the problems with stereotype threat. And sudden course withdrawal. I'm not going to play this video because we are a little pressed for time today, but again, we created these slides so that you can go back and view them. If this is a new concept to you, I really encourage you to watch this video, particularly the end where Dr. Claude Steele identifies what it is that we need to do in learning environments to mitigate stereotype threat. And he refers to the need to create an identity-safe environment. Now, this is a slide that I generally had not included when talking about humanizing in the past, but now in this time of COVID-19, we have an increased level of trauma, and it's made me think a little bit differently about trauma. Trauma changes the brain. It impacts, it derails executive functioning and self-regulation skills, the inability to plan, focus, remember, and juggle. When you're feeling really stressed and that stress sticks with you and lingers, I'm sure, I hope I'm not the only one who can think back to things, mistakes that you've made, including logging in an hour early for today's webinar today. Those are the effects of trauma on your brain. And a traumatized brain continuously scans an environment for danger and safety cues. So if we think about that and think about a learner learning in an online course, those safety cues that a student is looking for is generally it's our human presence. It's the smiles on our face. It's the tone in our voice. And so we want to think about what are those cues in your online course and how do we foster safety and trust online. So what does humanizing look like in an online course? Research points to the beginning of an online course as a high opportunity zone to cultivate or to reduce belongingness uncertainty, these negative mindsets, And so if we can focus in on that time and look at this as a high opportunity zone to create a safe place for our students to lean into and to share, then this is an opportunity. And with online courses, we don't need to think about them starting on day one. We know that our students are already worried about them just like we are before they start. So if we can extend this high opportunity zone before the actual course starts, it can be very helpful. With Humanizing, we also focus on the importance of ensuring that phones are supported. We know that more Black and Hispanic adults in the United States, according to the Pew Research Center, are smartphone dependent. And what that means is that they have a smartphone and use it to access the internet, but they do not have broadband at home.
Have you been having issues with?
So I'm going to go ahead and play a brief video here of a liquid syllabus, which is the first humanizing practice we're going to introduce you to.
I know what you're thinking. I have a syllabus. I've worked really hard on it. So why should I take the time to also create a liquid syllabus? And what does that mean anyway? After all, I already have my syllabus online in the form of a PDF. And I know all my students can access it in Canvas. But, folks, the thing is, when your syllabus is behind a login screen, it may be tough for students to get to it from their phone. And no matter how lovely it looks on a computer, reading it on a mobile device is tough. The information in that syllabus is important, right? The bottom line is, when we use tools designed for print products, they don't result in mobile-friendly experiences. And that's not good for our students. How might things change if you used a website tool like Google Sites or WordPress to create a liquid version of your syllabus? For just a moment, imagine being a student. It's the start of your first semester in college, and the week before class starts, you check your email and you get a friendly welcome message from your sociology instructor. It includes a button at the bottom to check the syllabus. You tap that button with your finger, and instantly you go to a syllabus that's easy to read and experience with the swipe of your finger. And you also discover something pretty special at the top.
Hi Scholars, my name is Katie Whitman-Conklin and I'm going to be your instructor this semester. A little bit about me. I lived in the Central Valley of California for a lot of years with my husband and children while he was stationed there with the Navy. And when he retired, we moved to northern Idaho, where we now live with our kids on a family ranch.
You think to yourself, hey, I'm going to love this class. I can't wait to get started. But you know what? That's not the only benefit of a liquid syllabus. Since it lives on the web, it's shareable with a simple link. That means you can place that link in as many other places as you'd like. How about adding it next to your course description in your college's class schedule, or on your profile page on your college website, or a link on your own professional website? And you know what can really help promote your course and encourage more students to enroll? That's right, share it on Twitter. When we design with web tools, we create mobile-friendly content that supports our students in so many ways. It also lets them know we care.
So the liquid syllabus is one strategy that we introduce faculty to in the professional development program that we're developing as part of our grants. We have examples of 3 liquid syllabi here. I'll just click out to one briefly just to show you how easy it is to access, and I encourage you to load it on your phone. And up at the top here, we have a video from Jeffrey White.
Hello everyone, welcome to General Biology Online. I'm your instructor, Dr. Jeffrey White.
So I'm not going to play more of that, but that is a video that he created in the Humanizing Academy. This whole thing is a product of it. And so I'll let you explore those a little bit more on your own. I also want to point out that we do have a link here to learn how to create your own liquid syllabus. It's a public Canvas course that we just developed as part of a humanizing challenge on my team, CVC-OEI, in the California Community College system, and it's open to anybody if you'd like to check it out and learn more. Okay, so again, a liquid syllabus is created with a website tool. It's intentionally made public, so it's easy to access, it's phone friendly, it's accessible. The content is created in it with accessibility in mind. That's baked into the process. It includes a captioned, brief, imperfect video at the top, supportive, hopeful language, tips for students to be successful. It includes a learning pact, which lists expectations. So what an instructor expects of his or her students and what they can expect of him or her. And that learning pact is really important because it's one of the ways that you start to break down that hierarchy of the instructor-student hierarchy, and demonstrate that you are going to be a partner in their learning. And then images, inclusive images that include pictures of people that look like the students that you serve. And we encourage sending that link out in a welcome email prior to a course start. In addition to that, we encourage faculty to think about other aspects of their course, including the course card that sits on a Canvas dashboard that students see. So how can we humanize that? How can we use images that are beautiful and engaging, and instead of threatening, and kind of breaking down some of those less supportive cues that can occur at the beginning of a course. And then faculty also design a humanized homepage.
I wanted to share my humanized homepage for Math 1A. In doing this redesign, I had a few goals. One goal is that the students know that I'm here to support their success and I believe in their success. And so I've included this brief 1-minute welcome video of myself in a casual setting. I just tell them a little bit about my point of view on the class and give them a couple tips for getting off to a strong start. Another goal of this page was that strong start. In addition to having a feeling of support and encouragement, I wanted them to have the information that they really need right here in front of their eyes the first thing they open the course. And so I've listed out the due dates that they need to be aware of for that first week so that they don't feel behind before they even start. And then the other goal I had for this page is that the navigation be very simple, no question about what the students should do. So I've numbered these 3 steps, and the third step, Start Learning, is the only one that's a clickable button, and that takes the students straight into the first module of the course, which is an orientation module.
So we're getting faculty to think about that home page as something that should be humanized, that should have their warm presence on it, and that doesn't create cognitive overload. Another practice is a Getting to Know You survey, which we provide a sample of for faculty in the Humanizing STEM Academy. And it's also shared publicly in the Canvas Commons. You'll find information about it at the bottom of this slide. Asking students questions, surveying them the very first week of the course about things that you need to know about them. We really encourage faculty to leave feedback in voice or video for the students who are their high opportunity students, but you don't know who those are until you do the survey. So the last 2 questions are especially important. In one word, describe how you're feeling about this class, and please share one thing that might interfere with your success in this class. That second to last bullet point, the responses from students will range from anything from great, fine, excited, to overwhelmed, anxious. And that's how you identify which students need your high touch support the most at the start of a course. And you reach out to them and you extend that to them. And then please share one thing that may interfere with your success in this course. And that's where students will share things about their situation that you need to know about as the course unfolds. And adapt your teaching during the course to support the students who need it the most. One strategy we encourage folks to do is to turn on the notes column in the Canvas gradebook and take notes about what you learned from the survey right next to the student's name. That notes column is only visible to teachers in the course, and it's a super helpful way to be effective and ensure that you are tracking what you know about your students as you're grading their work and looking at their login throughout the course. And then, as I mentioned, record voice and video feedback. So we also have faculty create a self-affirming icebreaker that is rooted in research that shows when you use some kind of self-affirmation at the start of the course, it gets faculty or students to reflect on their positive values. And a wisdom wall assignment, which is a way to foster metacognition, growth mindset, and self-efficacy in students. And I'm just going to describe this real quickly. A wisdom wall assignment can be used at various times in a course. This particular example from Sarah, she uses it for an exam, and she talks about her midterm exam in her math course, and the students don't know what to expect. In this particular course, it was a face-to-face math exam. And so she has her students after the exam share what they learned from the exam experience. So they're kind of reflecting on what they've learned, and they're sharing that those comments get shared with future students before the exam. So you're having students step into a place of where they are a subject matter expert, and then you're giving other students the opportunity to hear from people like themselves and learn from them in a future version of the wisdom wall. I'm going to skip past bumper videos and micro lectures. Essentially, these are just two other ways that we encourage faculty to apply the video skills that they learn early in the Humanizing Academy to content for their own course. And with that said, I'm going to pass it over to Kim, who's going to take you on a tour of the Humanizing Online STEM Academy, the pilot version of our academy.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. All right, so Michelle and I are pretty excited about this because you are actually the first audience to see a live demonstration of parts of the Humanizing Online STEM Academy. And this is really an opportunity for us to show how the Academy is designed and facilitated to model humanizing and also to engage educators in these concepts and frameworks. So I'm going to demonstrate sort of three aspects. The first one, just give you an overview of the Academy, and then we'll take a look at some of the contents. And then finally, what I'd like to do is highlight one of the participants' final project, which is the Humanizing STEM Showcase. And this showcase is really the project that educators work towards throughout the 6 weeks of the Academy. So the overarching goal of the Academy is really to introduce STEM instructors and faculty developers to the research that defines the problematic inequities in the STEM academic pathway. And what participants do is they really engage in the exploration of these evidence-based strategies shown to improve this problem. And so the assignments and the activities that we've designed are very intentional. They're designed to foster critical awareness of their own growth as online educators. And while doing that, they're actually taking the research and the theories that they're learning about and putting them into practice by developing and applying these strategies in their online STEM courses. So what you see here is the homepage of the Academy. And just as Michelle shared details about the liquid syllabus, the Academy also begins with a liquid syllabus. And what we do is we send this out about 5 to 7 days before the Academy begins. And the idea is to provide instructors and developers with a glimpse of what to expect, how the Academy is framed, and really help them to get off to a successful start when they begin that first week. Now, again, looking at the time, we don't have time to do a full walkthrough through the entire Academy, so I'm going to highlight a few things just to give you a sense. First, educators are greeted with this welcome video, again, drawing in that social presence so they get an opportunity to see and hear from their facilitators. And then we guide them, and you can see this Start Here button that takes them to the Getting Started module, which essentially provides the whole piece around helping them get started with a number of different activities and resources. So I'm going to click on this. And I should note too that you're looking at it from what Canvas calls the student view. And so this is what an educator would see when they logged in. Okay. And so the first page that they encounter is they get to find out a little bit more about the facilitators. And Michelle and Mike and I, who've been facilitating this, thought it would be really fun to share our kid pictures. I think this is, Michelle, this is probably kindergarten age. I think we're probably all at that age. And we each have a short bio, and we talk a little bit about our passions for humanizing. So again, bringing in that social presence right at the very beginning. Okay, and I'm gonna click over here. And the next thing that they get introduced to is the 8 humanized online teaching strategies, which Michelle gave you examples of those. And then not only that, this infographic that we provide for them takes a look at the various humanizing technologies that they also will engage in throughout the academy. And then throughout that getting started module, what we do is really just pave the way so that they can get off in week 1 and get started. And this is where their journey begins. Now, by the end of the academy, each of the participants will have applied these 8 humanized strategies and share them in what we call, again, the Humanized or Humanizing STEM Showcase. So I'm going to take a look at one of these projects. We kind of already did look at a peek of Jeffrey's, but what I'd like to just say about the showcase is that each one is very unique to the individual who creates it, and they're really highlighting their learning and their integrations throughout this showcase as they've worked on this throughout the academy. This particular one was Dr. Jeffrey White, who again is a professor in the biological sciences at Humboldt State University. And he teaches general biology online, which has a lecture and a lab component. And you can see here, the very beginning of this showcase, he talks about his reflections in being a participant in the academy. And I think this is one of the things that we've really modeled throughout the academy, is that encouraging faculty and faculty developers to engage in this process of ongoing critical reflection of their teaching. So that idea that it's very iterative and it changes and evolves. So I'm not going to hit on all of these, but what I will say is, as Michelle pointed out, that each of these showcases have links in the slide deck, and you can actually click into them and view a lot of these different elements. But you can see here, so for instance, he has a course card, again, that front door to his classroom, inviting the students in. He has one for his lab and one for his lecture course. And then so on and so forth throughout this showcase. And you can see what I really like about the showcase is that they have an opportunity to add some narrative. So he has video walkthroughs that shows, you know, how he approached, for example, the icebreaker in the course. But then there's a narrative about, you know, what were his choices and how is he thinking about his students in terms of creating these strategies in his course. And then a final point that I'll just say, because I know we want to open up to questions from all of you and thoughts, is that the showcase that you see here and the ones that are linked within the slide deck, these are our pilot faculty that participated in the academy this past spring. And right now, as we speak, they are launching their redesigned humanized courses for the fall. So we're pretty excited to be part of this and watch and evolve, see things evolve and emerge throughout the fall term. And so with that, Michelle, I'm going to hand it back to you. I'm going to stop share and we will open up for questions.
Thanks, Kim. So Lark, is there a method of taking questions that you would prefer us to use? Can we invite folks to unmute?
They can unmute, or if they want to raise their hands and you want to scroll up and down and see if anyone has their hands
that's
raised.
a great strategy. So for those of you who don't know how to raise your hand, we're going to ask that you raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question with your microphone. And here's how you do that. Click on the participant button at the bottom of Zoom. The participant window will open, and then at the bottom you should see an option to raise hand.
It looks like we have our first hand raised.
Oh, great. Vanson, I believe you should be able to unmute yourself and go ahead and ask.
Hi, so thank you. A couple people said hi to me in the chat. Hi, people. The context is I or another STEM faculty member in our grad school, we had a lot of our content and but we had maybe little to no coursework on teaching or even education. And so the humanizing aspect, what I'm hearing a lot is kind of education related. And how I'm thinking of some faculty who might feel less confident and perhaps shameful that, you know, they're not savvy on educational or science ed or math ed type of stuff, even though, you know, that's pretty much the field. What would you say to a STEM faculty member who is less confident? Thank you.
Kim, do you want to take that, or do you want me to?
Go ahead. Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
So I think that all faculty feel not confident. Interacting with hundreds and hundreds of faculty over the past 10 plus years, it's something that is pervasive. With that said, as I get to know STEM faculty better, I can see that it can be intensified. And I think that's actually one of the barriers also that we need to start breaking down. And I think what I would say is that the course itself is designed, it assumes that everyone is starting at the same point. So it's a very introductory course about the anatomy of learning and gaining knowledge about the things that we talked about in the slide presentation and more. But it's also that vulnerability piece. I actually had a slide about vulnerability and addressing vulnerability and addressing our desire for perfection and the desire to have all the answers and how that prevents us from improving. And so that is actually part of the Academy also, because we know that even asking a faculty member to record an imperfect video is something that is so hard to do. So acknowledging that and making space for that is what we focus on. Thank you for your question, Vanson. And I think we have time for a couple more. So Alex, Rocky, welcome. You are next. Would you like to unmute?
Yes, thank you.
Hi.
Hi. So I just have my question has two parts. So the first is, I love the idea of the wisdom wall. Is there any scaffolding that students need to feel empowered to put themselves in the position of an expert, or do you find that they just kind of go with it? And then the second part is, are there any concerns with privacy or FERPA when you share that with future generations?
So yeah, those are really good questions. I'll answer the FERPA one first, because that's super easy. When you create the activity, you're letting them know that it's going to be shared with future students. So baked into the comment, they are giving permission to share. When I've used the wisdom wall in my classes, I usually do it as like a 2-point extra credit thing or something like that. And you know, I personally don't think there's a need for that scaffolding, but there's a need to create trust. There's a need to create a sense of security so that students know when they say something, they're not going to be shot down. And that's the part of it that I think that where the humanizing really comes in. But the other scaffolding, we're really challenging faculty to use voice and video tools with their students. So that's what VoiceThread is, and Flipgrid is another one that's included in the Humanizing Academy. And that requires scaffolding. It requires the how do I do it scaffolding, but it also requires the it's okay, it's not going to be as bad as you think, and just being super supportive as students make those comments. So starting with something really low stake. Kim, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you framed that quite well. And I think the other thing I think about is it really depends on, you know, kind of when in the course and how you're integrating that. Because if you're doing a sort of a reflective piece at the beginning, there might not be kind of that community piece that's really, you know, it may just be emerging. I've done this with faculty too, the wisdom wall activity, and more towards the end of an opportunity or course or workshop. And so there's things that kind of get scaffolded as we're moving towards that help them get connected to one another and have those opportunities so they feel like it's more of a safe space to share. So that's another thing to consider.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. And next up is Diane Sharkin Taboada.
You did it. Great job.
Thanks.
all the letters, you sound them all. And I just started to write in the chat. I mean, I am an older generation, right? I haven't done a lot of online. I just took my first online learning class, period. So I fully believe in and appreciate what you shared in terms of the need for this, but I am very concerned about how my institution is going to help me learn all these skills. And I have the added weight. I work with credential students. So I have to not only learn the skills and demonstrate them in a way that is well enough done that my students can then practice them and do them too. So I'm just.
Yeah, that's a really, really good question.
The learning curve, right? Like how do you start in a way that isn't overwhelming?
Yeah, and that is something that we, again, mindfully consider in the academy. It's a 6-week academy, and every week you're learning new skills and building upon them. That's not to say that there aren't going to be times when you feel like you want to pull your hair out. It's not to say it's not going to be easier for some people and harder for other people, because that's definitely the case. And it's not to say that there are going to be unforeseen issues that we haven't even thought of. That always comes into play with technology. But I think the other thing that that we have tried really hard to do, and I don't know if we actually didn't make this clear, but we do have a scale phase for the academy where we will be inviting folks from other institutions and California public higher ed to participate. But keeping what you just said in mind, Diane, one of the things that we are intentionally doing is that we're looking for small groups from institutions, and one member in that group will be a faculty support / development person. Because we want STEM faculty as they go through to not only have the availability of the facilitators, but to have someone from their own college or university there with them to develop that relationship, so that when the course is over, and that's when the more full development of the course redesign happens, that relationship is in place, and the course developer support person has that knowledge about humanizing in place as well. So faculty need more support. I'm just going to say that across the board. Yeah. I mean, it's just.
I agree. And I mean, I think, those pictures that you saw at the very beginning of the presentation that showed sort of those partnerships between the faculty developer and the STEM faculty, that, that's what we've been doing. We've helped beyond the academy, have been supporting these faculty and their integrations into their course. So I think that relationship is really important.
Yeah. So we have 2 more minutes if there's one more quick question, or we could wrap up there.
Michelle, I have a question. It's Lark.
Hi, Lark.
I wanted to know, and I'm glad you mentioned the scale-up phase of your project. How do people keep in touch with you? How do people sort of raise their hand if they're interested in being considered?
That's a great question, and I actually have an interest list that I'm starting. Haven't developed it as a form yet, but I'll put my email in the chat. You're welcome to email me if you want to get on that interest list. I do want to just say that we have a lot of work to do to design the research part of the scale-up phase, and that is going to be connected to kind of how we go about recruiting from different institutions. So we have a lot of that groundwork to get in place, and I just want to put that out there. But we are planning 3 cohorts of 30. The first one will be this May. There'll be another one later in the summer, and then one next fall. So that's when the scale-up phase is slated to begin.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I just want to say thank you to Michelle and Kim for giving us a really inspiring presentation at a time when we need it the most. I think that so much of what you talked about today is practical, practicable, if that's the word, and just really relevant as we all go into fall instruction. I want to thank all the participants for joining us. I know it's a really busy time. Please watch out for our survey. We'd love to understand, what are you interested in learning and hearing more about, so we can provide value, be a value add for your time, as we're all dealing with really challenging times and really want to connect with our students. So again, Michelle, Kim, thanks so much for joining us. We will send this recording out to all who registered for this webinar and also post it on the Humanizing Project's project page in the near future. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful week.
Thanks for having us. Bye, everyone.